let's get into our roster for the starting 5. Chinese Taipei with PK in the top lane, Morning in the jungle replacing Bebe, Maple in the mid lane, along with Betty and Sword Art again rounding out the bottom.
And I should say this should be the strongest roster that Chinese Taipei can put forward. Maple has been the staple, probably the best player coming out of that region for a very long time, and I really like seeing him stepping back in over Morning in mid lane.
We'll certainly keep an eye on his performance, even though that some of his games have not been broadcasted. People are still talking about that Fizz game, the one in which he absolutely popped off. I believe, checking my stats, he went 10, 2, and 5 on Fizz. Absolute dominant performance against Indonesia, and again, a secondary strong performance earlier as he was able to play, but still we're now looking towards the rest of the roster to round it out. Bebe taking a step back and allowing Morning to step in to the jungle means that we could be seeing yet another flexible strategy from the Chinese Taipei squad.
Morning should be considered the more veteran of the two players here, and Bebe, surprisingly enough, is actually not a starter on his own team, so I can understand the decisions being made here. Maple, like you're talking about, has probably been the most fun player to watch.
Yeah.
If you've been to the side stages, overall Chinese Taipei has had the most dominating games.
Yeah, certainly. They haven't dropped a single game just yet. Looking to repeat their performance of the Republic of Korea out of Group A. Morning on that Olaf, trying to round things out for his squad as we finally make our way to PK, the final member of the Chinese Taipei roster. And it has been carries all across the board for this team. We've seen Olafs, we've seen Gallios, Varises, and Camille's. Pretty much any lane out of Chinese Taipei can and very well could win.
And one of these carry players is PK in the top lane. He was the Spring Split MVP in the LMS. He is known for playing the split push style, and what he has done with Morning is consistently dive the enemy top laner. Now, Saudi Arabia does have a chance here, but the game one between these two regions that has not been broadcasted went 25-2 in Chinese Taipei's favor. Now, Saudi Arabia did not survive the laning phase, and it was constant dives coming out from Morning.
And here we can see them on your screen. Wiki in the top lane, Ajwad in the jungle, Fear in the mid lane, Mimic as AD carry, and Mishal as support. Again, Wikichi, their top laner, their captain and shot caller for this matchup. He is an experienced top laner. He has played for a handful of pro teams in his region, and hopefully he'll be able to lead his team to a victory to bring us to a tiebreaker game 3 just afterwards. But it is going to be an uphill battle because Chinese Taipei look nigh unstoppable.
They certainly do, but it definitely is in the realm of possibility. Now, this Saudi Arabian squad, what they like to do is find early skirmishes, and they're very dominant in the mid lane. Fear on his Akali has been absolutely monstrous, and his Vladimir also secured a legendary performance as well. As for the bot lane, I would say they're a more defensive type of setup. They don't really get a lot of jungle attention, but they're there to scale later for the team fights.
You saw that kill participation was relatively high for Mishal to follow things up. Of course, Mimic will be trying to follow up with that. But as you said, all eyes should be on this mid laner, Fear. He's played Akali a handful of times and has popped off on the champion. We know she is very strong in the current patch. Is that enough? If he's able to get it once again and show us a carry performance against Chinese Taipei, or will it take something more to upset this matchup?
Well, we'll definitely take Ajwad coming into his lane over and over again. He has been picking mainly the Sejuani and going for the early mid lane ganks. That's the bread and butter of the Saudi Arabian squad. So the matchup between Ajwad and Morning versus Fear and Maple will be the crucial deciding factor in this one.
Certainly a tough matchup, and we'll be keeping our eyes on it, of course, trying to match PK for his carry performance. You can see laughing and smiling the team captain and shot caller, Wiki. He's been playing a lot of split push champions. That's why his kill participation is so low at 36%. But if he's able to successfully control his team around the side lanes while he's able to split push, that could be a strategy that the team of Saudi Arabia should be able to utilize against Chinese Taipei.
Wikichi should be the most famous, well-known player on the Saudi Arabian squad. He does play on EU West, is very highly ranked, and is known for those carry potential champions. And like our hairdressers told us, he probably is the most handsome man in the tournament as well.
He very well could be, yes. I would like to put that to a test as we get ready for this next matchup. For this game between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Chinese Taipei, we enter into this picks and bans. to now see, will we get a tiebreaker? Will the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia bring us to that ultimate decider, or will the Chinese Taipei squad be able to mimic the Republic of Korea's performance and go 6-0 in the group stages?
Now, the biggest test against Chinese Taipei is, can you actually survive the bot lane? The bread and butter for Flash Wolves, which is the main team that this Chinese Taipei squad is composed of, they like to play the 4v2 tower dive. We've seen it again and again today in the side matches that weren't broadcasted. And what you really need to do is you either need to play fire with fire, go very hard into the bottom lane and try to match them, or you have to play something incredibly safe. The Ezreal or the Tahm Kench would be some of those priority picks if you want to evade the wrath of Sword Art.
We'll see what those are going to be, though the Team Saudi will have the opportunity to look for counter picks as they are on that red side. They're even banning away the Varus, so getting rid of some of that engage, some of that strong bottom lane from Chinese Taipei. You can see their coach behind them for the Team Saudi squad, Kanzi-san. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit online before the event, and this team has been practicing on making sure they can play all of the different meta and macro strategies, but he would not indulge what some of his surprise tricks are going to be. So with everything on the line here for the tiebreaker, there is a chance that we might get to see something a little bit crazy out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
I want cheese. We haven't seen it so far. Saudi Arabia has played pretty much to the book. All of these picks we have scouted before, but if there is a game to do so, this one would be it.
Yeah, we're going to find out if he decides to play it here and look for that first place seed so that the Team Saudi can look to play against the People's Republic of China in our first semifinal, or if they're going to drop and try to upset against the Republic of Korea, which has not dropped a game yet. Still though, we now get our first pickup from Chinese Taipei, as expected, focusing towards the bottom lane. What is a bit surprising, though, is focusing on the Kai'Sa, as opposed to something a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, this pick doesn't really have the push and dive potential that someone like Varus would have, and I really like what Saudi Arabia has picked away from Sword Art. The Alistar is crucial in initiating dives, and we just saw how Chinese Taipei handled Indonesia earlier today. Sword Art just came out of everywhere. Like, if you lack vision, he is willing to sit in a brush for minutes on end just to find the perfect engage. So I really like the takeaway here, and they get themselves something safe and something that has pushing potential. This is a very good counter to Chinese Taipei's playstyle.
Now we do get the deny counter pick of that Alistar that you mentioned, but it looks like Chinese Taipei might be going for something a bit more safe instead. There's still plenty of mobility on that Tahm Kench with that Abyssal Voyage, able to traverse the map rather quickly, and now they pair it with a Rise for more mobility with the Realm Warp. So we could be seeing a similar highly mobile strategy out of Chinese Taipei. Now, seeing this in advance, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia do get the chance to counterpick. As the timer runs down, what do they take? Because there are a couple of options they can look towards. Galio is a great answer.
Yep, Galio does have the push. I would say it would be a 50-50 lane. You do have more mobility early, but later on, Rise becomes the unstoppable split pusher. But overall, you can see what Saudi Arabia's game plan is. They want to create space for Mimic to be the big damage dealer into the late game. There's a lot of protection for him, and there's also a lot of pushing potential so they can deflect potential fights incoming from Chinese Taipei.
Need to focus a lot on vision, and the way to do that is through the jungle. They're trying to set themselves up a strong matchup right now by banning away the Olaf from Morning, the champion that he did play earlier when he was on that jungle role, and now the Camille is being banned away from Ajwat, so it looks like Chinese Taipei are on point with this strategy.
This is so much respect coming out from Chinese Taipei. We've seen a classical cannonball strategy between Camille and the Galio. You go in with the Hextech ultimatum, the hero's entrance pops right on top of it, and it's so hard to get out of that engage. So with the Camille ban, what Chinese Taipei are saying is that they are trying to buy time for Betty to scale up in this matchup. They're trying to take away potential threats into the bot side. Once more, the Trundle does fit the same type as well. Trundle is a magnificent level 2 ganker onto Tahm Kench, who does not have any mobility. So putting a lot of putting a lot of eggs and a lot of trust into the Sword Art and Betty basket.
Now there is a Gragas pick for Ajwa to try and focus and deny that. It was double engaged jungler banned away. So yes, there are a lot of eggs in the Chinese Taipei bottom lane basket, as you said, but there are plenty of ways to upset that if the Gragas is able to look for some early ganks. So we've seen Predator Gragas for fast engages. The Flash Cask, Flash Body Slam are plenty of ways to catch up to the Kai'Sa with low mobility, but still this will be the Saudi team trying to upset and tilt the basket, but Sejuani is the lock-in from Morning. And you can see a big laugh out of the Chinese Taipei side.
So Chinese Taipei are playing this very, very safe. With Galio and Gragas, that's actually not a 2v2 that is particularly powerful in terms of the early game. So I was expecting Chinese Taipei to go with a hard-hitting jungle and try to win the 2v2 and at least give themselves one strong point on the map. But instead, they just opt in for the teamfight option. Now, Sejuani still does have a good matchup into the Gragas, but it's not really as punishing, and they're going to put their focus into the top lane with PK, probably taking a little bit of inspiration from the keen performance we just had.
Now Wiki, he is again the captain and shot caller for the team in game. He's going to be taking Darius into that matchup to try and deny that Darius threat. Vladimir is a great way to try and stall that out. Of course, the Blood Pool is a great way to get away from the Noxian Guillotine if you ever find yourself getting 5 stacks, but it looks like both teams are committed to playing to that mid and bottom half of the map, with Mimic and Betty being the 2 primary focal points of the team, and allowing PK and Wiki to just go mano a mano.
Yeah, definitely. Both of these squads are more focused, I would say, on the 5v5 portions of the game. It's probably going to be a slower match, hopefully not 25 versus 2 like Game 1 happened right here. And I really like Saudi Arabia's thought process in this draft phase. They secured themselves a relatively safe bot lane. It's not going to be dove easy. And in the top side, they do have a counter pick between the Vladimir versus the Darius.
And as the coaches shake hands, once again, this will be the final time they shake hands unless Team Saudi is able to take a win and bring us to a tiebreaker match, or both teams advance to the grand finals, that gold medal match that will be happening tomorrow. As currently these teams are fighting for seeding, fighting for the opponent that they will play in semifinals later today. The Republic of Korea taking the first place seed out of Group A, the People's Republic of China taking that second place seed. Neither team wants to face the Republic of Korea, so this is all or nothing in what could be our final matchup between Chinese Taipei and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
You can see the teams already lining up here. The compositions from both sides slightly different from what they played before. The focus shifting around the map for Chinese Taipei. It will be more into the top side, and for Saudi Arabia, they do actually focus a little bit more onto the bottom.
Now we've loaded onto the Rift. We'll take a look at where that focus is going to be for what is now our final official match of the group stages of the 2018 Asian Games esports demonstration. And you can hear the fans cheering along for this, as the Chinese Taipei squad looking to close out their group at 6-0, mimicking the performance of the Republic of Korea out of Group A. Whereas Team Saudi, they've managed to find Sword Art stepping up in division. Even Maple's getting down there. Let's see if it is Tongue Lash or Devour. Mitchell taking a few hits there. The Plasma will proc, and he's forced to back out of this as Betty already sets up his bottom lane for success and forces an early recall, but the wave is crashing in, and Mitchell is forced to stay.
Very unfortunate situation right here. He can play very far back, but he will have to expend a lot of his potions. So this basically means that he's going to be low throughout the entirety of the laning phase, and Chinese Taipei can look to capitalize that by just throwing early ganks in there and forcing Mitchell to back.
And already Chinese Taipei setting up their bottom lane with that very early collapse, and even Fear perhaps showing some of his namesake, showing some fear as Maple with just the Rune Prison is pushing him back and taking control of this lane. And while the lanes are starting to open up an advantage for Chinese Taipei, that does mean that the jungle is able to farm rather free as Ajwa takes Red and Raptors. Can he have a similar performance to score from our previous game?
Yeah, the question really is, where does he throw his early ganks down? You can see him pathing towards the bot side, probably trying to protect Michel from the loss of so much HP early on in the game.
And in the top lane, Wiki will get the chance to push back against this Darius. This is a completely different matchup from the one that we saw in our last game. Cho'Gath has such a difficult time farming from a distance, but on the opposite side, Vladimir has a great job of farming from a distance and even pushing back into the Darius, matching that sustain. In the bottom lane, though, Betty and Sword Art still going to push back against Mimic and Michal as he's able to heal himself up with that passive and, of course, using those potions. But Morning, I believe he's been spotted here by Wiki, who's playing very far back.
He was spotted, but this actually denies a lot of CS coming in from Wiki Cheese, unable to walk up to the minion wave, and I'd consider that a good gank overall.
Ajwad stepping up. Fear forced to get a good trade onto Maple with that Shield of Duran. Now Wiki's still going to step into the river. He's caught the flash snare, pulls him back, stun. He already used the Tides of Blood and will get chased down. First blood, Chinese Taipei.
A little bit of greed coming down there. He was trying to section off Maple and get an early kill, but unfortunately Morning was still waiting in the wings for him, so he walked straight into the 2v1.
Even Maple taking an advantage in the mid lane, forcing Fear back. He did not recall earlier, or excuse me, he did actually, picked up the refillable potion and is now forced to recall once again, though this time he will get a chance to use his teleport as in the bottom lane. Good save from Sword Art to get Betty out of the way. Mimic still goes in and immediately gets exhausted. The explosive charge is ready. Betty gets some damage back. Sword Art ready with the Devour on cooldown. Plasma procs, flash auto for one more, and Sword Art finds himself another kill down bottom. Team Saudi steps just a bit too far forward, and they pay with their life.
Yeah, it does look like a bit of overreach coming in from Mimic. He wanted to go in for the kill, but the exhaust was still there for Sword Art, and he probably canceled out the damage coming in from the E. This was unfortunate from Wikichi. He did see Morning just a few seconds ago in that position, but he thought that maybe there was a chance that he could do something about Maple. Unfortunate for him.
PK is still chasing onto this one. He gets level 5, has nearly got the Decimate ready as he's slowed, lands yet another. He's not close to level 6, but with the Bleed and Decimate, he finds a solo kill in lane. Wiki steps up once again, and Chinese Taipei are just opening up advantages everywhere.
Just look at that minion wave that Wikichi is missing out. As a top laner myself, that hurts my soul. I feel my heart burning right now. That was definitely a 1.5 wave, so yeah. He's going to be very, very far behind.
Yeah, hate to see that happen as Wiki makes his way back up top. The wave balances back out and might actually push away from him as the minions look to be close to even, but we'll see over a course of that laning phase as Chinese Taipei, they've got an advantage top, they've got an advantage bottom. They're even opening up an advantage in the mid lane. Already things are looking a bit dire for Team Saudi.
That was a very good knock-up coming out from Michel, protecting his AD carry and stopping both Betty and Sword Art from advancing. But I want to talk about the real difference between professional teams that play in leagues every single week and teams like Saudi Arabia who aren't necessarily salaried and have fewer opportunities to shine. I feel like their coordination with their junglers is typically the weakest point. Now, this play really stemmed from the fact that earlier on, Morning was able to not only get the kill, but get the wave pushing back. So Wikichi had no option if he wanted to progress his game, but to walk up. But his jungler was nowhere near for that to really happen, and he gets punished for it.
And that jungle communication is so important. You see what it can do when Morning is able to collapse up top on a minion wave and find a kill and play with the misinformation of Team Saudi. Ajwad is trying to do everything he can to open the map up, but every single lane is losing for Team Saudi. And he has to make a difficult decision. Who does he protect? Who does he invest his time and resources into to try and neutralize this Chinese Taipei advantage? Currently, Mimic is catching this wave down bottom, and recall has just been completed for Ajwad, so we'll keep an eye on which side of the map he decides to go towards, but already things are looking pretty dire for Team Saudi.
Yeah, the bot lane matchup should definitely not be looking like this. Typically, the Tristana we've seen being picked as a counter into the Kai'Sa in the western regions, just because you have the range advantage, you have the push advantage, but that's no longer the case with Betty getting the early kills.
Already with Betty starting to open up that advantage. Looks like he is going towards that AP Kai'Sa Chinese Taipei. They've got their lanes to an advantage. Now they're going to get their jungle to an advantage. Morning steals away the red buff and even hops over the wall into the Krug camp to take it. While I'm not sure if he saw Ajwad place that ward there, but still looks for some more as Betty He's very close to level 6. Might actually get the killer instinct off of this as he gets some good damage. That's the Realm Warp over the wall. Here's Maple collapsing. Mitchell forced to go in, but dies as Betty gets the kill. Sword Art happily tanking it for his carries, knows what he's trying to do, and that's a double kill going over to Chinese Taipei, 5-0.
And this is the classical Flash Wolves maneuver. All three of these members do come from the top LMS squad, and what they love to do is tower dive over and over again. This is the most efficient way to open up a massive lead in the early game. You get your first break, that's 300 extra gold. You deny minion waves. However, you do have to be careful walking back to your own lane.
Yeah, Maple taking some big damage out of Fear as he's able to get some trade across. Doesn't quite have the Catalyst finished off just yet, but with Betty finishing off that first turret, he gets a lot of bonus gold for himself. 1, 0, and 2, nearly double the CS. He's 25, 26 CS ahead of Mimic, who will be catching this wave. But already with that turret down, that means Sword Art is unlocked. And if I remember anything from the game that we saw earlier, that is a very scary proposition for Team Saudi Arabia if that Tahm Kench can start roaming around the map.
It could be any single bush. You have to defend everywhere, and it puts so much pressure on the enemy team. I think a lot of times the Flash Wolves playstyle actually just puts fear on the enemy team to the point that they give up their objectives willingly. And that's kind of how you want to be. You want to be incredibly punishing on the map.
And that punishment looks to expand now towards the Infernal Dragon. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has already set up vision all across the river. They know that's the next step. But interestingly enough, Chinese Taipei, they're not going for a full lane swap. They're sending Betty and Sword Art into the mid lane to force Mimic and Vishal there, as Fear is even stepping up to try and catch the wave as well. That means Maple gets the chance to push bottom, but more importantly, it preserves the top lane advantage for PK against Wiki. He's 22 CS ahead, and by keeping the current lane assignments, they're able to continue to expand that advantage while still having presence toward that Infernal Dragon.
There is no answer in the bot lane. If Saudi Arabia don't want to lose the minion wave, they're going to have to trade something back in the mid for it, but isn't able to pull down the trigger. Very good cover by Morning in the river right there. And we should talk about the strength of a Tahm Kench Kai'Sa 1-3-1 strategy. It is the fact that the Tahm Kench and Kai'Sa can arrive at any of the side lanes in a moment's notice. So it's a very dynamic type of composition, but here comes the engage.
They're trying to force a fight. Betty is the engaged target, but already they've found Ajwad. He steps too far forward and is forced to back away. Steps up, he's now taking the Infernal Dragon, but gets pulled in by PK and executed. Dragon gets picked up along with another kill onto Mishal. As the Team Saudi Arabia looks for an advantage, they saw the fight coming, but they weren't able to get anything with it. That's the Realm Warp, as you said, the Abyssal Voyage chasing forward, and they found Wiki under the turret. It's 8 kills to 0 as 5. They're maneuvering between the two turrets and routing Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, forcing them away. They find another kill. Mimic looking for something, looking for anything, goes down. A double kill to Chinese Taipei.
And they do that walking through Saudi Arabia's tower. There was nothing really that the KSA members could do. They were being corralled all around the map. I do like the idea. I do think you need to have use your Galio ultimate and try to turn the tides of the fight. But that was so well played out of Chinese Taipei's bot lane. Kai'Sa was able to evade the crowd control coming in from the Galio. She got out of the way, and in her place, you know who teleported in?
It was the Darius.
It was the Darius.
And he does a lot of damage.
As a Juggernaut, if you get into the enemy bot lane, in the midst of the enemy composition, if you get to their back line, it's a field day for you. You do massive amounts of your damage. Your only weakness is being kited. And pretty much Saudi Arabia was all grouped around for the Noxian Guillotine. So it was a perfect response coming out from Chinese Taipei. A good idea from Saudi Arabia, but an even better counterplay.
We very well could be seeing a perfect game on our hands out of Chinese Taipei. It's still very early, but they've already shown 10 kills to 0. They've controlled the river, they've controlled all of their lanes. Now they're finding another kill onto Fear as they're chasing him out of this river. Even with Mishal there's nothing that he can do to turn it around as 3 members quickly collapse. That Kai'Sa, 4-0 and 5. Guinsu's Rageblade already finished, and 10 stacks on the Dark Seal, as now they're going to reclaim control over this river and take the Rift Herald under the vision of Team Saudi Arabia.
This is the quarantine that we were talking about. Once this 1-3-1 is established, it is so punishing because the 3-man can appear at your doorstep at a moment's notice. There's nowhere safe on the map.
Now they found Sword Art. They're getting good damage with Mimic, who's still going back in, finding Ajwad and forcing the stopwatch, but he's at less than half. Betty tries to get in there. He's got the killer instinct. Mimic separates, looking for his first kill of the game, but that leaves his tanks undefended. The flash from Betty, he finds himself the kill. Mitchell with damage reduction denies it for so long, but Betty is nigh unstoppable. A stopwatch. As Mimic did die, PK collapsed, and still they chase these kills down. Under the turret again, a triple kill for 4 members of Team Saudi Arabia going down, and Chinese Taipei using the Rift Herald mid to further push this advantage. But now Wiki, he's caught window shopping over the wall. Hemo Plague, Tides of Blood denies it, but Maple, is he gonna stop? Decides not to chase the tier 2.
Oh, that was a crucial slow coming in from Tides of Blood, but no killer instinct. Everyone hold their breath. It's fine. It's fine.
Now the mid-tier 2 went down, and the inhibitor turret, 13 minutes. Chinese Taipei, the only record they're chasing for game time is their own, as they're trying to get a Rift Herald charge onto the Nexus turrets 13 minutes in, looking for what could be one of the fastest games of this tournament. Full health slam into the turret, down to half. Fear goes in. Betty tries to kite it out. They've managed to catch PK, but he got to the decimate, and he's still trying to get some AoE, and it is not going to be the perfect game. Finally, they find a kill onto Morning, but even 4 versus 5, Chinese Taipei are still doing work as Betty finds one. He's able to chase it out with the auto attacks. Fear steps up and dies as 3 members of Team Saudi Arabia drop down. It's 4 versus 2.
That was an insanely risky position that Betty was taking in. He was basically corralling the 4-man from Saudi Arabia to the right side of the map, forcing them to engage. And even though they lose a perfect game, they can still keep the siege going.
They break down the Nexus turret, but they're not able to end the game. 14 minutes before Team Saudi Arabia can even think of surrendering. They've lost a Nexus turret and have super minions flooding in through the mid lane. It's 18 kills to 1 in one of the most one-sided games of this tournament so far. And still, Chinese Taipei, they're going to complete a recall and come back even stronger, as they are 12,000 gold ahead right now. But let's take a look at that once again.
This is the combination that Saudi Arabia has been looking for their entire game. They do get the Darius down early, so there's no resets coming out, but look at Betty's positioning. He snipes down Mimic mid-jump. And just the position to force everyone to the right side, force them into an awkward situation where they could not retreat without taking damage. You could see Saudi Arabia's communication really collapse in the final moments of that fight.
And that communication is something they need to recover from, because they are down 13,000 gold. Recall completed from Chinese Taipei as they make their way back onto the map with items galore. Magi's Soul Stealer picked up from Betty, and it should be noted, he bought the Nashor's Tooth, thought about it, sold it, and then purchased the Magi's Soul Stealer and then the Fiendish Codex for a non-completed Nashor's Tooth. So this is all in from Chinese Taipei to try to end the game within the next few minutes, as they're now pushing this next tier 2. It breaks, and they've even got Maple pushing up top as he's actually teleporting behind the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and forcing them back away from their own base. They need to defend it, though. Chinese Taipei, they don't even have to fight this. They can turn around and try to end the game. That's the Abyssal Voyage to flank them. They're collapsing from 2 sides. Now's the chance. Chinese Taipei are split, but they're still trying to catch up. Betty's at low health. Mitchell's trying to deny it as best he can. They're still looking for one, but Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are falling apart. It's a double kill going over to Betty, a double kill going over to Sword Art. The Ignite, not even enough, and Betty survives. 22 kills to 1 for Chinese Taipei.
Oh, and that has to be so disheartening to watch the final tick of Ignite not take Betty's life. That was just
so close. Yeah,
it was kind of disgusting how clean that was played over from Chinese Taipei's side, just corralling Saudi Arabia across the map, breaking their spirits.
And now they're turning on to the Nexus. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are defending as best they can, but there's only so much they can do with super minions flooding in. Betty will finally die, the second death of his team of this game. But in 16:37, Chinese Taipei take the win and lock down first place.
So I believe that was the fastest game to be played in the group stages. The next one would probably be China versus Kazakhstan?
I believe so.
And that was, I believe, 20 seconds longer than this one.
About 17 minutes, yes. But Chinese Taipei, undefeated, 6-0 in a completely one-sided fashion, absolutely tear through their group stage. The only record they were trying to beat was their own, but the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, now they are locked into second place. And in a short while, we'll be entering the Asian Games 2018 Esports Demonstration Event semifinals, in which the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will have to play against the Republic of Korea, another undefeated team. Whereas Chinese Taipei gets the chance to take on the People's Republic of China in a similar match, a best of 3 that will also be happening later today.
Of course, the one that we will be broadcasting will be between the Republic of Korea and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I have to say, it's a very, very tough day for Saudi Arabia.
Yes, still making a strong showing throughout the duration of this tournament at 4-2, beating all other opponents in their group in Pakistan and Indonesia, but still dropping down to Chinese Taipei. We've said already, we get the chance to see the full spectrum of developmental leagues to fully set up leagues with the LPL, the LCK, and the LMS. But
VCS
to see, and the VCS, to see the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia compete on this level and try to take these games speaks to the growth of this team and of this region.
They should be celebrated for making it this far in the tournament and
yeah.
actually getting to the semifinals. A lot of chips were stacked against them. If you looked at their region, you go, where's their server? Where do they practice?
Exactly.
How do you actually play against other professionals and better yourself? And they were able to jump through all of those hurdles, take down Pakistan, take down the home crowd favorites of Indonesia, and really do step it up to Chinese Taipei as well. I think they should be commended for their efforts.
Yeah, and of course they'll still get a chance to, as you said, practice against professionals, currently the best in the world in the Republic of Korea, and try to bring them down as undefeated during the Asia Games group stage. This is the opportunity for them to really show themselves on the main stage.
They need to gather their spirits, however. I do think they were very shook in the last fight. They should have all in on the Tom Kench, like Sword Art was basically testing them, and he was going, I'm actually coming in here by myself.
Yeah.
And all of the Saudi Arabian players were running forward, they were running away from the Tom Kench, and they walked straight into a trap right there. So they are letting the mind games and a little bit of the frustration that Chinese Taipei have been putting on them, letting it into their heads. Now, they need to get that out of themselves and understand the situation that they're going up against. They're probably going up against the best team in the tournament.
Yes.
They need to have a good mentality, no fear, not a step back, not a step backwards, and you really have to play fire with fire.
Absolutely. You have to step forwards when playing against the Republic of Korea. Again, they've got plenty of time. They've got hours of tape that they can watch, as we will be taking an hour break after we finish off this. But still, there is an opportunity for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to look for an upset. The match that I do want to talk about, though, will be the other semifinal, the one that won't be broadcasted, because I think this is the one that will decide how the finals are going to end up looking through the majority of standing, in which Chinese Taipei takes on the People's Republic of China, and that is going to be a hotly contested match.
It will certainly be. Both of these regions know each other incredibly well, so they should be very intimate in the strategy, and I expect things to be quite different. It's not going to be as close to the meta as we have expected in the group stages because of the familiarity between these two teams.
Yeah, they do practice and scrim together. They play against each other very frequently, so there are lots of opportunities to know the enemy teams very intimately. But here you can see just the damage graph alone. Betty leagues ahead of any damage that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia could do over the duration of that game. He's going to be a similarly instrumental factor in that next matchup, knowing his opponent is going to be Uzi, the most mechanical player in this entire tournament.
So the most recent matchup that we've seen between the LMS and the LPL has been at the Rift Rivals.
Yeah.
And over there, actually the Flash Wolves did take down RNG, and they split games in the most recent, the previous international event of MSI as well. So it's going to be a very close matchup, and the bot lane especially is the one that I feel like decides the entire series, because both of these teams do like to play towards their bot side. Flash Wolves or the Chinese Taipei team are very focused on the 4v2 tower dives, and the same thing does apply to the People's Republic of China as well.
Yeah, now we've got our man of the match ready for you to see who will take that for Chinese Taipei. Surprise, surprise, it's Sword Art, the roaming monster of Tom Kench himself, here to devour you.
The River King showing up by himself was enough to scare 5 Saudi Arabian players away from their positions, and he's just been having such a masterful tournament so far. Sword Art is also the shot caller of the team. He's been a long-standing player going all the way back to Season 3, 2013. And, he's just the soul of the team. The punish comes from him, the lane dominance comes from him, and the direction comes from him as well. I would say he was the most important member of this team so far.
Yeah, he's been providing huge direction for Chinese Taipei over the duration of this tournament. And it's that direction that's going to be so important in the next matchup that Chinese Taipei have got to take, because the People's Republic of China, they've shown us a handful of strategies now. Most of them have been victorious against the other two squads in their group. And the flexibility of that team is something that has to be respected. Still, though, we do now get a chance to hear from the Chinese Taipei squad themselves in our post-game interview. Why don't you take it away?
After match interviews, Chinese Taipei just won against Saudi Arabia, and I'm here with the MVP of the match, Sword Art. Congratulations, Sword Art, very well done. A great match. First question for you. The Republic of Korea moved 6-0 into the semifinals. You guys moved with the same score, 6-0 into semifinals. Strategy-wise, what are the similarities between you guys and them?
我觉得我们跟韩国队最主要相似的地方，就是我们比较偏向打运营的层面为主，就是打战术方面，然后我们就是才可以那么顺利的赢下所有比赛。
All right, so we believe that with the Republic of Korea, we have a very big similarity in the strategy-wise. The strategy, we like to take things slowly and then to work forward and then to work harder for that. Now, the second question for Sword Art, you guys are moving forward and you are going to play against the People's Republic of China. Talk to us. What is going to be fundamental if you guys want to make it into the finals?
我觉得他们队最强的一定是他们的下路，所以我跟 Betty 如果能在下路中发挥的比较好的话，我觉得我们还是很有机会的。
Okay, so everything is going to depend on myself and Betty. If myself and Betty, we are going to have a good day and we're going to have a good performance, we're very confident that we're going to make it into the finals. Well, good luck on that match. I know that regardless the result, the most happy and here the happiest people is going to be the fans, because they're going to watch a tremendous match. All right, let's keep going with more of this League of Legends.